Hello everyone. Today we will talk about the Angular. This is a framework of JavaScript. For many young developers who want to dive into the industry, they know about React, but it's very widely popular. But for me, it was personally interesting Angular, why we have one more technology and why it is widely used, especially in big companies. So let's start. Here's the outline. We will talk today about introduction jQuery, and we'll talk about history of AngularJS. We'll mention about 3 pillars of AngularJS. We'll talk about React, and you will know why I will talk about React in the presentation of Angular. We will talk about the modern Angular and its advantages. We'll mention disadvantages, and we'll speculate about the future. So let's start. So here's the introduction. Let's start with jQuery. In 2006, it was for many developers was the first JavaScript library. It helps them manipulate with DOM, that is Document Object Model, and brought the consistency for browsers. At that time it was popular Opera, Internet Explorer, and Safari. But after some time newer browser came, like Google Chrome, and they bring new technology, and today in 2021 it is nearly dead. The popularity of jQuery rapidly decreased. So why? The question is why. I guess the start of the end of jQuery was influenced by the development of new technologies like JavaScript technologies like Angular, especially AngularJS back in the beginning of 2000s. So AngularJS, what is it? It's a framework. Well, jQuery was a library. It was framework. It's what's the difference? Both collection of pre-written code, but framework determine frame. It determines basic structure of application, by adding extra tools for that. Authors of AngularJS, or like Ember, at that time popular, thought that good product should be built and function in a particular way. So AngularJS was created in 2010 by Google developers. It was Miska Havery and Adam Abrams, and they called it Angular because HTML element has brackets at that and the markup, and the form of that bracket is Angular. So as simply as that, they call it Angular. In 2016, they introduced new one, just Angular. It was completely rewritten. You can't even update. You should redevelop your full app. So AngularJS and Angular, they have more different than in common. So it's even different frameworks. Let's go back to the beginning of 2010s. At that moment was popular AngularJS, and it was more popular than Knockout and Backbone. And the question is why? Answer is because they have 3 main things, 3 pillars of AngularJS. It's two-way data binding. Second one, dependency injection and directive. This technology helped Angular be one of the main frameworks for developing web applications. So let's talk about one by one. Let's start with two-way data binding. Framework defines the architecture of the application. So Angular used model view controller. It has 3 layers: model, controller, and view. Model, it's responsible for core logic of the app rules. View responsible for interface. Controller accepts inputs from view and sends response back from the model. So it's basically in the middle between view and model. And two-way means asynchronous nature between view and model. So whatever happens on model displays on view and vice versa. Second technology was dependency injection. As you know, dependency is a relation between different pieces of code. Traditionally, each object in the code has a construct dependent object. If you want change dependency, you should change an object too. So instead of attaching dependencies into an object, you can attach injectors that links to the dependencies and showing the central location. So as a result, you can reuse code, mock dependency, and you can easily write in the unit tests. So directives, the third pillar of AngularJS. So the most used part of AngularJS, they are extended classic HTML. They work as a marker of DOM elements, telling AngularJS what behavior to attach to that element. Basically, they make it possible for HTML to create dynamic content. So you can see at the bottom the example of that. So AngularJS, so all of this established AngularJS as a perfect tool for building single page applications. Use tons of elements to interact with. Engineers start to solve problems that they struck before, and the framework got so popular. But large single page applications were doomed to be slow and laggy. So it was a problem, and AngularJS didn't provide any solution for that. But another technology did, which was introduced by Facebook, and it is React. In 2013, yes, Facebook team introduced that, and it was like a bomb for that moment. They offer a different way, simpler way. It rolled back to one-way data binding. As you remember, Angular used two-way data binding with 3 layers. They just used 1 layer. And also they use components. It's a fix problems with large SPA. So basically it makes the life easier and improves the productivity of the large single page applications. Then they release React Native for mobile app on the same base, and it was completely fresh air for developers that struggled with the complexity of AngularJS. You know, like for many developers it was not easy to write on AngularJS, and React even wasn't a framework, it was just a library. So what Angular team from Google they did, they refused to accept defeat and launched the big update 3 years later in 2016. What they did, they no longer MVS architecture, it now component based like React. So they decided to go to the one-way architecture as well. So it breaks, by the way, it breaks the single responsibility principle that was used before, and where every class or model should be responsible for just one function in the software. But right now it breaks, so it just goes in a view, and in a view you have all more than one single responsibility. You have some more things to do on that level. So they introduce component-based architecture like React. Components, you know, it's independent features of the user interface with their own structure and APIs. They can be copied and reused, easily tested and replaced. But more importantly, one component can be updated without refreshing the whole page. While MVC separated all functions into 3 different levels, component has all these functions on the same level as the view level. So basically Angular follows the path to become component based, like React. Along with this architecture change, the future Angular version offers 4 types of data binding, not one way. You can use two-way, event, and property. They have some advantages for that, and right now developers can define communication between components and view, which is very important. Also, Angular moved to TypeScript, a superset of JavaScript that's similar enough to be easily learned and different for all the right reasons. It has static typing, it finds mistakes before productions, it's easy to read and support JavaScript libraries. Switching to TypeScript brought the mobile development closer to Angular because it uses native script and mobile framework for building cross-platform apps. Also, one of the advantages of Angular is NGRX, the state or data management tool. In component-based architecture, there is some minor con. Each component has its own state and no idea what other state is. NGRX allows to share this information by keeping the state in a central store, creating a single source of truth, which very helpful. You know, like to overcome performance issues, they did what the team of Angular did. They make the dependency injection hierarchical. So Angular builds a hierarchical tree where injectors coordinated with components, and you can apply dependencies and serves to a whole subset of components. It also introduced an optional service called Angular Universal that renders the view on a server side instead of a client side. That can easily improve the performance. So basically, SPA initially renders on the user browser, app loads slower. With Angular Universal, the server will pre-render the web while browser still loading it in, in the background. I'm sorry. It also provides search engine crawlers with a pre-rendered page instead of a page lacking some content. It helps with search engine optimization. One of the advantages also is Zone.js in terms of performance library that notifies Angular when asynchronous operation are complete. So it's, I guess, based on the observer pattern, observer programming pattern. So it knows which zones and when to re-render, and before AngularJS would simply reload the full application. To improve performance, more additional tools are introducing, like lazy loading. This allows to delay the loading until it needed. So just a delay and then only rendering. So they have cons of Angular. Angular remains as a trusted and robust framework. However, it loses React and Vue because of their simplicity and performance. It was voted as most dreaded framework because people didn't like, especially I guess young and junior developers were struggling with this framework. Again, yeah, defeat simple technology and React and Vue. It's hard to learn, and I guess this is the main cons of Angular. But overall, future of Angular, it's bright, I guess, because big app stays with Angular, big companies still trust in Angular, They have continuous support from Google. Google, one of the leaders in the IT, in the development of IT products, and they have strong team, and they always improving their products. And Angular have a lot of the updates that makes the life easier. Even some small startups choose Angular because it is reliable. And I will say that good application is rarely good because of its technology. It's good because of the code is good. So good framework helps the developers create. So good technology helps developer create a good project. So Angular, it is widely used for that, and a lot of the good technologies, good application based on this technology. Thank you for attention. Have a nice day. Bye bye.